Morning, everybody. I'm Chad Jones, your Public Affairs Officer, and welcome to our bi-monthly Commanders Call with Garrison Commander Colonel Nyland. Today's event is going to be broken down in the following. We're going to start off with a state of Fort Meade by the Garrison Commander. Then we're going to get into some of our employees for the things that they've been doing over the last few months. That will be followed by our Deputy and then we'll get questions. I would encourage everyone to do now. For those of you who are watching via the web link, you can start in the bottom in the comment section. You can start asking your questions now that you might have. I have a stack of questions already, but feel free. Anything that you would like to put out or have answered, please put that in the comments, and then we'll get it up and work through. We're tentatively scheduled for an hour, but we'll work that as we do. So with that, thank you for coming, and I'll pass the mic over to our Garrison Commander, Colonel Nyland.
Thank you, Chad. Hey, just like you said, I'm Colonel Chris Hahn, and I'm your Garrison Commander. It seems like it's been forever since we did this last time, but it was just 2 short months ago. And I'm really excited to recognize some people and their great work, and to answer the burning questions that might be out there with the workforce. I want to start today with some thanks. So first and foremost, thanks to the DIMAS team and the PAO team for putting this together and working through some technology challenges. I apologize we weren't able to get this onto Teams, but we'll be working to make this session more and more accessible to all of you as we continue to do this. Second big thanks I want to put a shout out to is to the DFMWR team and the DES team for doing a fantastic job with the 4th of July fireworks. I was floored. A number of people were absolutely floored. I'm just really glad we had the opportunity to do that for our residents, for our community. And I think it was really neat that even the news outlets out of Washington, D.C. picked it up. And they had, I don't know if any of you saw, but they had helicopters flying overhead. So it was a really cool aspect on the fireworks. They were filming the fireworks from the top down, and so it was really cool to see that. But I got to tell you, it's one of the best fireworks, and I'm not just saying this because it's our fireworks, but it was one of the best fireworks displays I've seen below the national level. So it was. Thank you very much for all the hard work and effort those 2 teams put into that. I want to start today talking a little bit about the current pandemic and where we are with regard to mitigation measures, et cetera. So probably the last time we talked, all the numbers were heading in the right direction. There was a lot of discussion about HPCon Alpha. I know many of the teams out there have already developed entire plans of what we would do when we transition to HPCon Alpha. Many of you remember Department of Defense put out some very specific criteria about case rates in the local area. And we needed to be below 2 cases per 100,000 in the local area to transition to HPCon Alpha. And we met that target for about 2 weeks. And now case rates are going back up. Just as of Monday, case rates were around 2.5 cases per 100,000. And they've been steadily increasing for about 2 weeks, and we've seen a 60% rise. So, for any of you that have been paying attention to news, and I'm sure that's many of you out there, what we're seeing the surge of the Delta variant in the area. Now, it's not nearly as bad in our local area as we're seeing it in other places, but the simple fact of the matter is the pandemic isn't done with us yet. So, just on Monday, we had a session with the senior commander, Major General Pepin, and we reaffirmed with him that we are remaining at HPCon Bravo, at least for the foreseeable future. So that means that all the standing mitigation measures that we have in place right now, everything from workplace occupancy capacity, contact rosters, sneeze guards, all those things will remain in place, to include all the enhanced measures we have at the CDCs. Some of you may have seen yesterday the Centers for Disease Control came out with new guidance with regard to mask wear. To summarize it, they've said that while up to this point, if we were unvaccinated, they said, hey, look, you don't need to wear masks anymore. Yesterday, because of the Delta variant, what they've come out and said is that even vaccinated people indoors should wear masks in areas where the Delta variant is surging. Now there's a lot of left and right. There's a lot of space to maneuver in that guidance. However, we are anticipating that sometime later this week, the Department of Defense will be putting out an update to their mask mandate. So right now, the current mask mandate is in effect. If you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. If you're unvaccinated, you do have to wear a mask. But that may be changing this week. And as we see any updates on that, we'll be sure to communicate that to the entire workforce and to the community. And that was news for everyone in this room because I literally got that right before I walked in here. And bottom line, I'll tell you anything I tell the 2 points I have for the community is I think we're all tired of mitigation measures. We're all tired of the pandemic. We're tired of seeing people get sick. We're tired of seeing people pass from complications with regard to COVID. The most important thing, in my opinion, that we can do, that each one of us can do to help us get past this is to get vaccinated. The country still stands somewhere around the 66% range of what I saw just recently with vaccinations. And if you are tracking the news, those nearly all of the hospitalizations, all of the deaths related to the Delta variant are all amongst the unvaccinated population. I'd ask you, if you've chosen not to get vaccinated up to now, it's still your choice. But I ask you, if you've chosen not to get vaccinated at this point, to take another look at the science, take another look at the data, and reevaluate your decision and consider getting vaccinated to protect yourself, to protect your family, and to protect the communities that you live and work in. The second thing I'll tell you is your leadership remains engaged at Echelon, everywhere from this community into MDW, all the way up to DOD, in monitoring the situation, monitoring the science, what's coming out from the experts, and making decisions that protect the workforce, that protect the residents, and ultimately protect the critical national security missions that go on in this post. So I say that because you may see changes to mitigation measures, such like the updated mask policy, and those are proactive measures that we're trying to take to ensure the safety of our population, to ensure your safety, and to make sure those missions can keep occurring here on post. So that begs some questions with work conditions, telework, et cetera. So I want to address a few of those up front. Right now, and really for the foreseeable future, with this need to remain at HPCon Bravo, I do not anticipate any major changes to work conditions in the near future. I will remind everyone the guidance that I've given to directors. We've set service levels that we will provide for the residents and our mission partners here on post. And the general guidance I've given the directors is to have the minimum number of people that they need to have physically at work in order to meet those service levels. So that looks different in every directorate, and that looks different in many shops in the directorates. My favorite example is the great DHR team that we have out there working on ID cards. Fortunately, there's no way to do ID cards from a telework environment, so they've been working in-house during the entire pandemic and have been doing a fantastic job of that. But some offices may be different. Some offices you may be able to work primarily virtually. Some offices may require some sort of hybrid. But I've really left those decisions with the directors. That being said, they are constantly evaluating their shop's abilities to deliver services. And so, another great DHR example is Many of you know we're in the midst of the summer PCS season. And so we've seen large demands on our orders processing section in order to meet the requirement for our customers. And so Wes has had to make some moves to bring more of the orders processing team into work physically in order to keep up with that demand. And so it's a rheostat, and that we may have to turn up and then we can turn down based on the conditions that exist on post, not only the COVID conditions, but the requirements of our customers. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on that. If you didn't know already, one of the main reasons why we have so many flexibilities with our telework policy is because the Department of Defense has put out some exceptions to policy with regard to telework. Just earlier this month, the Department of Defense has extended all of those flexibilities out until March of 22. So I try not to read too much into that. There's a part of me that would really like to believe that when they do something like that, it's because they're trying to make a permanent change to the policy and they're just trying to get themselves some time. But there also may be influenced by just how long they think that we'll be operating under these COVID conditions. So, but until March of 22, we've extended those facilities, and unless I'm ordered otherwise, my intent is exercising those flexibilities to ensure the health of the team and the health of our customers. Okay. So speaking of the senior commander, if you don't know, we hosted him up here last week. So on Tuesday, General Pepin spent about half the day with the senior leadership. And first off, my thanks to Mr. Mixon and the LRC team, along with the PIO team, for helping put that together and making that a world-class event. And my command group team did a pretty darn good job with it too, so I appreciate that. It was an overwhelming positive experience, and I will tell you, General Pepin showed up with an open mind and a willingness to learn about Fort Meade, what we do, and what conditions we work under here, because he didn't have a lot of experience with the post previous to this. So we spent a lot of time educating him on the size of the total workforce here on Fort Meade, the types of missions that go on here beyond just the NSA and US Cybercom, the 119 tenant organizations, and the outstanding work of the garrison team that supports all of those 67,000 people, those 119 mission partners. And really, our whole point was to give him a high-level overview so he can contextualize problems when we brought requests for decisions to him. Could kind of understand problem sets that exist here and to understand the challenges that we face in delivering for our customers. I fully anticipate he will be making a number of visits here. I think we're already planning his next one, and in subsequent visits, it's my intent to get him down to see you, to see what you do, to see how you do it, and to really get an understanding of the garrison and what we do during the follow-on visits. Because there's a lot of great work going on out there, and I just can't say enough about how proud I am of this team and what you're managing to accomplish on a day-to-day basis, even especially under the current conditions, being COVID and being the budget. I know I've already got some questions on the budget that I'm going to be happy to answer. Okay. So I always like to kind of talk about the where we are in the year. And as I look at it, we're coming, feels bad to even say this, but we're more than halfway through summer. August is coming. We're getting ready to start. Soon the kids will be going back to school, which I know it's going to make some of you happy, and some of you are not necessarily looking forward to the additional workload. But really, what that screams to me in the beginning of fall, and there's a lot of things that occur in the garrison in the beginning of the fall. And, just some of the big ones, I beat up the PIO team all the time and tell them, hey, look, we're rapidly getting, and that's the closure of all the big boards and bureaus and working groups. It's really the summary of a year's worth of work and what we've managed to accomplish to meet the senior commander's intent, and then getting him to validate what we think our priorities should be going into the next year. And one of the things that we're doing to help prepare for that, in addition to all the great staff work that's going on out there, is I'll be taking the senior leaders. We're calling it an offsite. We're really not leaving the post, but we're getting out of the garrison footprint to really talk about where we've been last year, how we've been doing, and where we're headed for next year. This big thing coming up, and Ditmas already knows this because they've been working hard at it, is a Capital Shield exercise. And that's the big exercise that we do as part of MDW, where we shake the rust off of our emergency response plans, and particularly this year, MDW's asked us to do something different than previous years, where we're going to be looking at our ability to support MDW's mission in the reception, staging, integration, and onward movement of potential military elements that would need to deploy to the National Capital Region in the event that we have more unrest, similar to what we had in the beginning of the year. So that's going to be something new. It'll be something we've done for the first time. And Ditmas has already laid a great foundation for it, but it's really going to impact every single directorate in some way, shape, or form. And so please be aware that you're going to start seeing some stuff about that, some questions on that coming up. And then, fall, I'll be honest, fall is honestly one of my favorite times of the year, because the weather generally is still pretty nice, but it's not quite so hot out. You got football season starting, which I'm a big fan of personally. Although I'm not too sure how my Saints are going to do this year. A little bit worried with Drew Brees gone. So you've got that. You've got some great holidays with Halloween and the Hallelujah Festival that the RSO puts on, and then Thanksgiving, and then run it right into Christmas and to the end of the year. So my estimation generally is, especially around here, is come the fall, we really start putting the foot on the accelerator and start moving out pretty quickly, because a lot of big things start hitting one after another. So, I would just tell you, take time now to take care of yourself if you haven't done so already. Take leave, take the opportunity to break away from here, build some mental resiliency in, and get a break from the day-to-day demands that you're facing in your workplace. Because come the fall, I think we're going to be a pretty busy little garrison as usual. So with that being said, between the last time we talked and this time, we went through the big teams transition. And I know there's still, I know we're all still struggling with it a little bit. That's one of the reasons why I'm not coming to you today via Teams, but we're only streaming on the Divots Hub. I ask you, if you're still struggling with the Teams transition, please get with your IMOs. There are some little things that aren't incredibly obvious that are absolutely necessary that you do, especially if you're teleworking right now. Things like being on the VPN and having the right VPN server in order so that Teams knows that you're on the .mil domain in order to access meetings. We've also had Sergeant Hooker doing some experimentation, and we think that we can recover some of the challenges. We think there are some techniques to recover some of the challenges that we're having for people outside the organization or outside the Army footprint in order to be able to access and use our Teams beyond just dialing in. But it does require using the web browser, and there's some instructions there. So if you talk to your IMOs, if you're struggling with it, or if you have people that you want to into your team sessions that aren't able to get there, please talk to your IMO and have your IMO talk up to Mike Steele and Sergeant Hooker for some TTPs on that. I know there are a lot of questions also with regard to email addresses. So in case you didn't know, if you've got a mail.mil email address right now, you also have an army.mil email address right now that is active. So there's for example, my team has set it up for me so I can check both accounts. And thankfully, I'm not getting a lot of email on one of the accounts, but occasionally I do. Sometime in the next 6 months, we will be transitioning away from our mail.mil accounts to our army.mil email accounts. We will have more information and very explicit guidance on that in the upcoming months. But right now, I am not anticipating that happening until late this calendar year or early next calendar year. So if there's some anxiety out there about the email accounts, you don't have to worry about it right now. It's honestly that transition. We're going to have a very deliberate transition plan, but even that transition plan is not our number one priority right now because we're dealing with another IMO issue with regard to storage space and stuff that you should be getting some more guidance on here in the next month or so. In addition, so many of you have already experienced the new taskmaster in town with Lieutenant Colonel Taylor covering down and being in charge of DITMAS. And I know that he may have caused some waves out there with some of the changes that he's implementing. I will tell you, the vast majority of those changes were directed. We are looking. What we are trying to do is we're trying to improve, modernize, and streamline some of our operations processes in order to make sure the entire team stays informed of what's going on here on post, and to make sure that we're looking at big upcoming events in a timely enough manner so that we can make guidance and decisions and we're not reacting at the last minute. So we're in the middle of that transition right now. I ask for your patience with him, but understand that he's executing guidance that I've given him, and you will continue to see some changes in the battle rhythm and some of those pillar meetings that we have for the next month or so as we shake it out and as we get to where we're trying to get to with the battle rhythm. Okay, that's enough work stuff. Let me hit a couple last topics here before we get to do the best part of this event and give out awards. So speaking of awards, performance awards. So for the civilian workforce out there, I know that's a topic on many of your minds. Right now, we have nearly all the information we need from the directors and the leader and the manager teams. And next week we will be having our awards board. However, as of right now, we do not yet have permission to release the awards. So we'll do our awards board next week. We'll send it up to IDS. They'll validate the results, and then I fully anticipate we will get permission, especially as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, to execute awards. Right now, there's no reason not to. The PERSCO account is good, so we should be able to do that. And we are moving forward with the process we need to. So again, I ask for your patience with regard to the performance awards, but we are actively working those. Okay. I've been talking for a while now. I think I hit all the major stuff I want to start off with. But I can see I'm losing some of the people in the audience here. So that means I'm probably definitely losing some people out there in the outstations. So we're going to go to the best part of this now, and let's do some awards, Chad.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Sergeant Major, if you can please come up. And our first awardee today is a very good friend of mine, Mr. Larry Whitley from the Public Affairs Office. He is retiring. This is like his fourth retirement, but he is retiring. He's going to be receiving the Civilian Service Commendation Medal for his tenure here at Fort Meade. He'll also be receiving a flag flown over the United States Capitol for his meritorious service as the Chief of Command Information here at Fort Meade, and really leading us through the COVID communication that we've gone through over the last year and a half towards his efforts. So, Larry, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Larry Whitley. Our next awardee is Mr. James Neville from Emergency Services. Many of us have seen Mr. Neville at multiple security gates to make sure that we got on and off post safely. And now he's going to be receiving the Civilian Service Commendation Medal, a certificate of retirement, and the spouse certificate for his spouse Eileen for extraordinary leadership and dedication to supporting over 60,000 military and civilian residents, workforce, and families in Fort Meade. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. James Neville. Our final awardee for this group of retirees is Mr. Marlon Bowie. Mr. Bowie is also from Emergency Services, and you've also seen him. He's stopped me like 3 times the last 12 years. So, but he's always gentle. And he's going to be receiving the Civilian Service Commendation Medal, a certificate of retirement, and his spouse Gail will also be receiving a certificate of appreciation for their exceptional meritorious service, leadership, and devotion to duty and dedication to the access control mission. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Marlon Bowie. Oh, yeah. So when you get the award, come on out through the back. Watch it. All right. Our next awardee is going to be Miss Amber Petronio. Amber is from DHR, and she's going to be receiving the Civilian Service Achievement Medal for managing over 300 personnel transactions and reducing staffing time by 30% since she's come on board.
Really struggling bringing people over. Very close to the made the job already.
Yeah. Miss Amber Petronio. Our next awardee is going to be Mr. James Hinckley from DES Physical Security. Mr. Hinckley is going to be receiving the Civilian Service Achievement Medal for meritorious efforts ensuring the installation and operations fully constructed access control went out on.
Higher physical security team. Oh, sorry. Sorry, before I let him go, and this goes for the entire physical security team. What I told these gentlemen while they were up here privately is, one of the many reasons why I sleep well at night is knowing that we've got professionals on guarding the gates, we've got professionals patrolling the streets, and we've got professionals looking at our entire security plan here on post, making sure that we keep our residents and keep the missions and activities here safe. And I just can't, and it's a thankless job. And honestly, it's designed to be a thankless job. If people that you are absolutely happy with you and think that think that everything's wonderful, then the security really not tight enough. It's just the simple fact of the matter. But this professional team down in DES has done a wonderful job of balancing the security needs with the needs of the workforce and residents, and I am personally thankful for everything they do. So thanks again.
Okay, so for this next group, I would ask you all to please come up at the same time and meet up front. Ms. Giannina Lumford, Ms. Mila Cisco, Mr. Austin Beislin, Ms. Jessica Luke, PFC Raul Sanchez, and Specialist Troy Hughes. Each one of these outstanding members of our team will be receiving a commander's coin for service in their various jobs. Ms. Gina Nina works for a DFM operations clerk and has played a role in assisting management during the COVID closures. Ms. Cisco is also a DFMWR Administrative Support Assistant, and she's being recognized for distinguishing herself in the performance of her duties as a member of the NAV Financial Management Office. Your last line is a DPW civil engineer, and he's being recognized for executing multiple complex projects and inspiring others in DPW with his can-do attitude. Ms. Luke may have the hardest job on Fort Meade. She is a DPW realty specialist, and she's being recognized for outstanding efforts and dedication to advancing the continuous initiative supporting the goal of implementing Operations Order 19009 and 21002. Whatever those are, those sound important. PFC Sanchez is our patrol drug detective team handler, and he's been filling a critical gap, asset gap, second MEW after achieving a certification with only 26 days of training. And Specialist Hughes is a law enforcement officer who's being recognized for constantly going above and beyond the scope of his duties and winning the detachment Soldier of the Bull. Congratulations. And finally, I'd like to call Lieutenant Colonel Calicut, our new SJA, and the staff judge. Oh, did I ruin it, sir? I take that back. I'll do push-ups later. He'll be joining his SJA team, and I'll go through. So in June of 2021, the Office of the Staff Judge Advocate Legal Division was awarded the 2020 Chief of Staff Award for Excellence in Legal Assistance. This award recognizes the office for superior treatment in providing professional legal advice and assistance to soldiers and their families on their personal legal affairs and needs. Only 15 legal assistance officers across the active duty force received this award in 2020. Excellent, but also commitment to training systems.
Okay, I want to take a minute to kind of highlight two things. First of all, like Chad said, this is our new SJA. As we refer to him around here, he's the new Jerry. So if you remember Colonel Dugan, Colonel Chris Calicut has stepped into that role and has already been knocking it out of the park with giving me some great legal advice. I'll be giving good legal opinions to the best part oftentimes of being a commander is when you show up and just timing wise, you kind of, or not being a commander, but being a leader in the Army is oftentimes you just because of timing, you tend to be able to show up and you get recognized for the work of your predecessor. But this is really a statement about the legal assistance team more than anything else, and the outstanding work they've done. This is an Army-wide recognition of excellence, and it's not the only ones. It's not the only ones that we receive here at Fort Meade. We've received other ones in other departments, but this one's a big deal. This is twice in 3 years. So this is the second time the legal assistance team has received this award in 3 years, which is not just a single spot of excellence, but a pattern of excellence that most importantly supports this community, the military service retirees, the families in the surrounding area, with work all the way from doing work with the Maryland Congress, to supporting residents with housing issues, to supporting any sort of legal assistance questions. So thank you for all the hard work that your team has put in, and don't screw this up. Okay, there's excellence. Okay.
No pressure. Okay, with that, it is my pleasure to introduce my boss, I guess most of our bosses, but the Deputy Garrison Commander, Mr. Gunnar Peterson.
So, good morning, everyone. Colonel Nyland asked me to cover a couple of topics that pertain to civilians. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is a civilian physical fitness. Now, if you've been around for a while, one's existed for years. It's covered by a regulation, and the Army recently kind of updated the standards and re-announced it, I think, because it hasn't gotten used very much. So basically what it is any civilian can get up to 3 hours a week of admin time, but under some pretty strict circumstances. It's not just, 3 hours of extra time off. So the first is it's a voluntary program. It's not required by anybody. The 3 hours of administrative leave is no more than an hour. Put in a command-sponsored fitness health promotion program, which includes physical fitness activities, preventive events, education on health promotion topics such as nutrition, exercise principles, and other activities covered by the program. So it's kind of broad and it's not an entitlement, and your supervisor has to approve your participation in it. If you do participate in it, you've got to self-certify that you did what you said you're going to. So that's one of the requirements that the employee needs to meet. This program is specifically targeted at improving fitness levels or body conditioning. You can take this time in conjunction with lunch. So now that I've said that, I'm sure somebody's already thinking, okay, if me and my friends go to the PX food court and some of us cheesesteaks and some of us get muscle milk bar food, we can sit there and mention that someone to the muscle milk bar are eating a lot healthier than the others, and that will cover a fitness or nutrition program. And I do get questions like that. I know Colonel Calico will come up with the rest. So another way that they're tracking this is there is a special code in ATAPS for this type of administrative leave. So if an employee participates in it, you have to account for your time in ATAPS with special coding so that the Army can track how much time is being used. If you're interested, check with your supervisor. We'll put out more information to make sure everybody's got it. Now, here's the key thing. Employees must report to their workstations before and after the authorized fitness period. So that doesn't mean that I can get up in the morning, do PT, go to work an hour late, or I can leave hour I'm going to do PT. Even if you are, I mean, I'm not suggesting that somebody would do that without doing PT, but the requirement is you have to report to your workstation for anchor. So again, the opportunity is there to get some duty time to improve your fit, but as with anything, there's some bureaucracy tied to it, and we have to make sure that we comply with the requirements. So the other thing you wanted me to talk about, and I'll go through it quickly, and I know that my predecessor probably discussed this quite often, but that's civilian education and the importance of civilian education. Now, since COVID, civilian education programs has changed quite a bit, and there's more in the distance learning phase, but some of the courses still have a resident phase. If you were hired after 2006, September 2006, you all should have taken the foundation course. And I know we don't do a very good job of tracking that, but when new employees come in, before you even get them, once they have computer access, before you even get them started doing what they're supposed to be doing, you should have them sit down and take the foundation course. They can go through it within a couple of days and complete it. And that way you get it out of the way. It all gives them a good foundation for the Army. The basic course for GS1 through GS, this is a distance learning course. There's a along with that. You have to take the distance learning. Intermediate course, the advanced course GS13. Now, I all heard that. But the course I want to talk about, it's not really a course, it's a course, and that's Defense Civilian Emerging Leader Program, so DCELP. DCELP is one of the programs that is open to many, GS7s through GS14. So, you know, some of these programs like Senior Service College, you have to be a 13 or 14, 13 by exception, you have to be a 14 or 15 to apply. And some of the other more advanced schooling within the Department of Defense is up into the higher grades. But this is a program that is offered to anyone to apply GS7 through GS14. It's a 1 year, but you don't have to leave Fort Meade to do it. The way the program works basically is there are distance learning phases, and then there are resident phases. The resident phases are actually TDY trips of about a week long. You might go to an Army base and observe airborne training and go off of one of the jump towers, not the big jump towers, the small. Or because I've sent people to this, I have friends that have done it. You'll go to a Navy base and you'll tour a submarine, or you'll tour a ship. You'll go to a Marine Corps base and you'll go to the live fire ranges and get to fire a variety of weapons. You'll go to an Air Force base and do whatever it is the Air Force does. So it's a good broad, it's a defense program, and it's a broad experience that you can pick up from all the services. It's not Army specific, and it has a lot of developmental opportunities that go with it. So the announcements for that usually come about this time of the year, sometime midsummer. I haven't seen them yet, so I think that with COVID and funding, things might have been delayed this year, but I'll look and see if I can find the dates, and I'll send them out to the supervisors so they have them and can pass them on. Is the question that a lot of people, and that's just, there's no answer to it, but it's how do I get promoted? So, as I said, there's really no easy answer to say this is how you get promoted in civil. It depends on a large variety of things, but you know, I've hired a lot of people over the course of my career. Just this year, I've sat on several panels for hiring of deputy garrison commanders, and there's a couple of things that I could point out that if you're serious about trying to get ahead and moving up, you need to take into consideration. So one would be to kind of look outside your comfort zone. You know, you've been doing the same thing for 10 years, but you've got other skills. You need to think about doing something else so that you can broaden the experience that you can put on your resume. That would be of advantage as you apply for it. It's not just the area you work now. The part of this is you have to be very careful in making sure that when you do your resume, you can explain why you qualify for the position you're applying for, because that's one of the gates that you have to get past is the CPAC has to qualify you for the position in order to forward your name for a hiring list. You have to continuously scan USA Jobs. So USA Jobs, usually a job for about a week. So if you're looking for a job, but you're not checking USA Jobs, you might miss something. You can go into USA Jobs and set it so that you'll get an email notification for certain job grades and series that you pick out. So you can get it automated, but I would recommend that you just look at the Army, look at all services and look at other DoD agencies and even outside of DoD to other components. If you do find a job you want to apply for, read the job announcement very carefully because there's probably going to be requirements in there that you wouldn't even think about. One that I can tell you that people have stumbled with, even though you're currently in the system, you have to provide an SF-50 proving that you're in the system. So a lot of people just assume, well, CPAC will know that because I work here. That, and then if you submit an income package, it just gets put aside. It's not considered. So make sure you read the job announcement carefully and comply with all the requirements of it. I can't stress enough that you need to update your resume. You can't just submit the resume that you wrote 5 years ago for the job that you're in now. I've seen a lot of really bad resumes. They're a cut and paste of a position description. They're a cut and paste of somebody else's resume, and it might be a male, and when you read it, it refers to her or she. And so reread what you wrote. Read it a couple of times, and then give it to somebody else to read it to make sure that everything is correct. Focus on what you've done in the last 10 years. Okay? What I did 30 years ago, even more than that, it was more than 30 years ago. But, you know, what I did in the Army is nothing like compared to today. We had Jeeps, and we did have M16s, but we had Jeeps and World War II mortars, 81 millimeter mortars, in an infantry unit, an old series of radios. You can't even compare it to what an infantry commander does today. So it doesn't really matter what I did 30 years ago. Everything's changed. And it's the same with civilians. The job you had 30 years ago is not as important as focusing on the skills you've developed over, say, the past 10 years, and focus on that. Pay attention to detail. So there's other things that can trip you up. I mentioned the courses, the civilian education courses. Education is important because it shows that you're trying to improve yourself, and to take advantage of CES and any other courses that are available to you, you should do that. It does help you on your resume, but it can also hurt. And the reason I say that is, you know, there are certain mandatory trainings that we have to take every year. Or if you're a supervisor, you have to take the supervisor development course every 3 years by law. So if you list that you took, and you say, I took the course in 2017, but it's a course you're supposed to take every year. What does that tell you? You're not complying with the requirement. So you need to make sure that when you put data down that you know what you're saying. So double check the courses that you list, which is why it's important to update your resume, so that you're not submitting data that appears to be outdated. And the last thing I can say is just don't get discouraged. I know that not everybody is geographically mobile. You know, your families are here, your kids are in school, and you want to get ahead, but you don't want to move. Well, fortunately, right here at Fort Meade, fortunately for you, sometimes unfortunately for the garrison, because we lose good people, there's a lot of agencies here right on Fort Meade that have higher graded opportunities. It's just a fact that the garrison structure is pretty standard, and the grades only go so high, and they're limited in the higher graded positions, how many we have. So don't hesitate to look around Fort Meade. And then being this close to the National Capital Region, there's many jobs out in the National Capital Region. If you are geographically mobile, the one caution I would give you is pay attention to where you're applying and make sure you know what you're getting into. I say that because we're on the Washington, D.C. pay scale, which means we get the locality pay for Washington, D.C. You know that's pretty good. If you go to an installation that's on the rest of U.S. pay scale, locality pay, it could be a significant cut in pay, which for some people is not a problem. And it might be one of the sacrifices you have to make to keep moving up. But I just want to make sure that a lot of people don't even think about that until all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't know that was going to happen. So pay attention to that and don't get discouraged as you're applying for jobs. Just keep at it. Again, to show my age, but back in the day when we used to have to submit SF-171, which is a written application, I used to tell people like, hey, why not apply? It's the cost of a stamp. What can they do? You know, you never know when they're going to say yes to you. Now it's not even the cost of a stamp. You apply online. So it just takes a few minutes of your time. If you keep your resume updated, you keep your education moving, those things all, and I wish you the best of luck in any jobs that you apply for. I don't think anybody can give you that answer. There's just too many factors that fall into it. But I encourage everybody to keep in mind. And another thing I would suggest is look around, and if you don't find one, doesn't have to be that real formal, the kind of mentor relationship that you read about. Just somebody you can sit down with that has experience that you can bounce ideas off of, that you can ask advice from, that who you trust the advice that you give you. Right? Thank you.
Thanks, Gunner. So you don't get to go anywhere. You get to stay up here with me. Sergeant Major, come on back up, and we're going to answer some questions from the. I'm sorry, Major.
So there's going to be a little bit of microphone passing back and forth as we get through the question. And again, if you're here and you have questions in the audience, raise your hand. Feel free to ask. I'll make sure you incorporate it in. But the first question I have is from Miss Lois Bennett from DHR. And you got into this a little bit today, sir, but she asked if you return work policy, as many personnel were given less than a week's notice to return. And additionally, the office processes for them returning to work was not clear.
Okay, and you said that was from Lois? Okay, so Lois, it sounds like so first of all, let me start. Right now, we do not have a return to work policy. I have not published any policy that says we're returning people to work. We're still operating under the last set of guidance that I've given to the DH or to the directors, which I explained earlier, but I'll say again, requirements, we've got to meet our service requirements. And sometimes some shops can do that primarily from telework. Some shops have to do it primarily in person. Some shops are a combination, and the shops that are working either primarily virtual or in some combination, depending on the conditions, they may have to make some adjustments over time. That being said, it sounds like the conditions that you were asked to return to work at were less than ideal. The additional guidance I've given the directors is I've asked them first and foremost to work closely with the employees to make sure that we understand their conditions that they are operating under COVID conditions. I know that's changed for many people, i.e. Home situations, and take those under consideration as you're making decisions on needing employees physically present at work. The other thing is as much as possible, we want to give at least 2 weeks notification to allow folks to make adjustments to their home situations in order to be able to facilitate them to return to work. That being said, it's not always possible, especially depending on the demands on some shops. One of the things that I've discovered, even as we've been on this COVID journey together, is that oftentimes we have an idea that hey, we're meeting demand in a certain area. We're okay. We're doing okay here. We might be doing things virtually. We might be doing things later, and then we'll get some data in that maybe indicates that we're not necessarily doing as good of a job meeting the demand as we thought we were. We'll generally go back and do some digging, look at some statistics, look at a few different things, and I don't want to say it's an emergency, but it's something that we want to take action rapidly on because ultimately we're in the customer service business. All of us are, myself included, and we've got to provide those customers good service. So it sounds like that might have been the situation in that shop, but overall, my guidance directors is, if at all possible, make sure we work closely with the employees before we ask them to return to work, to understand their situation and give them as much leave time as possible with the goal of 2 weeks, of at least 2 weeks.
That's right. At 45. Oh, okay, the parking at 45.
Okay. Okay, parking at 4550. Let me give you my senior project officer for the parking at 4550. Sorry, Major.
Well, hey, that's a good point. We didn't think about motorcycle parking, so maybe take a look and hash a couple spots out there. It's not gonna be right next to the building, but it could be in that back parking lot by the dumpsters. So we'll take a look at that and get back to you. Thank you.
But I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Sergeant Major. I mean, you put a lot of work into the parking plan in around 4550. Once we identified it, yeah, okay. But really, with regard to so what we did down there is we got rid of quite a few reserve spaces. Spaces. I think that question may have been that we were giving motorcycles too big, or motorcycles are taking up full-size car spaces. But the bottom line is between the high customer traffic and the large number of employees that work in 4550, the simple fact of the matter is parking very close to that building is going to be a challenge for the foreseeable future. A lot of it's going to depend on when you show up to work. A lot of it's going to depend on if you're willing to walk, a quarter mile or so. I know that sounds a lot, but walk from across the street or something over to 4550. That's fair? Okay. Budget flexibility. When can we expect more budget flexibility was the question. What do you think, Connor?
I thought you would ask. Again, this is one of those questions. There's really no good answer to it. It's not going to be FY22. FY22 is probably going to be worse than FY21. The FY22 budget guidance just came out, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't read it yet. I just got it yesterday or the day before. It's one of my many unread emails, but I will get to it. And if you all the directors have submitted a budget for FY22 and got into RDMT, which is a system that's used to transmit it. We got our requirements in early so that we could review them locally. They're not due up to IMCOM until the first week of August, I guess, and then it'll go through a review process up there, and we'll have a better feel for what we're going to get next year. In terms of manpower, it's going to be static. We're not going to get any growth, but we're not losing any either. And in terms of the discretionary funding that we get, where we can go out and buy the things, the priority will be to the life, health, safety things that we have to have, equipment for the firefighters, equipment for the police, equipment for the security guards. They will be the highest priority, and then we'll work it down from there. Once we get a better feel for what our program budget guidance is going to be for FY22, when they kind of give us a dollar amount of what we'll be able to spend, we'll relook what we submitted, and we will develop a 1 to N list, a priority listing of what it is that we need to do with that money, which the colonel will be the approval authority for.
Thanks, Connor. And so Well, I completely agree with you. I don't think we're going to see any additional flexibility in the next FY. What I will tell you is if you need something, if your shop needs something, ask, okay? Because you don't know where it's going to fall out in the priorities of the garrison, and we don't know you need it unless you ask for it. So please ask. We found something in the PAO shop just about a month ago, and we they did what's in our heads when we were making decisions. They asked for it. Now it's racked and stacked in the priority list, and as funds comes available, we're going to look at procuring that for them. But if we don't know the need, we can't spend money on it, even when we do have some money. So I know that's not a great answer, not the answer most people wanted to hear, but that's where we're at.
Sir, I have a question. Why are there so many?
Okay, so for the audience, the question was, why are there so many calendar conflicts? Why are some directorates exempt from going to meetings or op order briefings or concept briefings and stuff like that? So let me take the second one first, and it's not a matter of directorates being exempt; it's a matter of enforcement. No one's exempt. The orders go out. The orders go out by DITMIS and are signed by the DITMIS leadership, but they're signed by me, and those are orders or directions to the workforce. So it's more of a matter if there are some directorates that aren't consistently showing up, it's more of a matter of enforcement, and that's on me and my team. For the first one, why are there so many calendar conflicts? I'm going to take responsibility for that, and I'm going to take responsibility for that because I'm dabbling with and the bottom line is we've been working under certain ways for a very long time, and those met the needs of the garrison when we put them in place. Shook things up, and we put a bunch of systems in place during COVID, and that changed the way we did some other stuff. And we've been operating like that for a little while. Now we've got a new commanding general as a senior commander, and he's been making some changes in his battle rhythm. And really what we're doing right now is we're basically looking at the system holistically, refreshing it in order to, one, build better situational awareness across the workforce, but two, in a drive towards efficiency and effectiveness. And we're heading that direction, but we're obviously not there yet. But we are working that way. And that's one of the reasons why you've seen so much emphasis recently in forums like the FOGWAM and different ones like that, of making sure that we accurately understand what's going on out there, so that when we're making battle rhythm decisions, they can be informed by you. So thank you for that question, though.
So the POC for the program is probably going to be in DPTMS. If you want to start the paperwork. And yes, it is one time only, limited 6 months.
No, honestly, I mean, it's a great idea, and I think everyone should take some time to focus on both physical, mental, and spiritual fitness. Unfortunately, like Gunnar said, there's some Army bureaucracy on that program, but I think there's still a lot of potential for you to pursue some goals and to make sure that you're taking care of, to help you take care of yourself, which we get the benefit from, because if you're taking care of yourself, then generally that shows out in your work, which is awesome. No, those are all the only questions?
Those are the only questions that I had, sir. But if you would like to talk about Reese Road or...
Okay. Oh, sorry. Yes, ma'am. Thanks. That's a great question. So the question was on trash disposal about whether we'll ever pick that up or whether employees will continue to need to take out their own trash. The bottom line is, I do not anticipate that change anytime soon. So those were one of the fiscal belt tightenings we were directed to undertake for this FY in order to reduce our overall spending. And based on Gunner's comments, and I agree with him 100%, with what we're seeing for next FY, I don't think that will change. I think I'll be honest. I'm just hoping that that we further reduce some of those services than where they're at right now. So just for everyone, we were directed as a garrison to basically take a 10% budget cut last year. But as many of the vast majority of our annual budget goes to fixed costs, things like the electricity bill, the water bill, those big sort of things, the base operations stuff. So what we had to do was those big fixed bills, we had to get in there and try to make those fixed bills as small as possible. And so that's why we're not necessarily cutting the grasses off, and that's why we've reduced some of the services in the non-customer service areas with the janitorial service, et cetera. Even with all those reductions, when you get down to what I call our discretionary funding, the kind of the funding that each office gets to spend each year, we ended up taking a 66% budget cut in that funding because we couldn't reduce the big bills by enough. And that's why we've made I made a decision that we were going to, rather than distributing budgets to each office, we're going to hold the entire budget up at the garrison and basically look at the requirements from across the entire workforce in order to rack and stack and prioritize those things. So it's the bottom line is with the current Army budget and the prioritization of the Army budget, I think at best we'll be flat for next year. That's my opinion. We'll see what happens. We don't know yet, but I think at best we'll be flat for next year. So we'll see another year very similar to this year is what I anticipate. And I know that's not great news, but it's the conditions we're operating in right now. All right. Any other questions from the audience? Okay. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I picked this up on the side. I think we're having some problems seeing the comments on the divots thing. So you may have asked a question in the comments on divots. Our commitment to you is that we will answer all those questions back out to the team. How are we going to do it? Nothing like putting them on the spot right here.
No, well, we will get your name as it goes in through the comment.
And we'll also looking at address it in our next Meade update. We'll address those questions in the next Meade update so everyone can see the answer to those questions too. The last thing Chad asked me to talk about real quick is the work that DPW is doing out to make all of our lives more inconvenient out by Reese Road, right? That's your goal, right, Randy? No, I give him a hard time. Yeah. My bottom line is, I think everyone's tracking Reese Road gate is closed. And that's part of our major modernization effort of the traffic throughways here on Post. Step one was Mates 175. They did a great job out there. Step two is Rockenbach. We're at step three of about a 5 or 6 step dance right now. And step three is the modernization of the Reese Road ACP and the widening of Reese Road all the way out to Cooper ultimately. We're at stage one of that right now. So while they're doing the work on the Reese Road ACP, they're also going to widen Reese Road out to right now Rose Street, and what that's caused us to have to cut off Ernie Pyle going north-south right there. That's going to be like that for a little while. And I know that's going to complicate things, especially as we start bringing kids back to school in August, because I know, your school bus traffic, you're going to have traffic out to the CDCs and school age center out there. It's not up there, and that's the other piece I'll tell you is right now Rose is stage 1. Eventually, we're going to pop that all the way out to MacArthur and Wyatt and Reese all the way out to MacArthur. And then eventually, once we start working on Cooper Road, we'll also start working on the rest of Reese from Cooper back towards MacArthur. So I'm not going to lie to you, because a number of major projects that are going on here on post this year and in the coming year, we're going to be a construction site for a little while. You're going to, many of you have seen the high school's under major renovations right now. You're going to see continued construction out at the NSA. You're going to see, help me out, what are some of the other, we're doing a construction project out for DLA. AOC is going to continue to be under construction. Cooper Road, really that's FY23 is when we anticipate work probably getting started on Cooper Road. Oh yeah, the new barracks construction that'll be going on. Yep, and then we've got a new mission partner building a facility out by Ernie Pyle and Welland. So there's going to be quite, the bottom line in the constant story I tell whenever I talk about Fort Meade is one of continued, and I mean, we get stationing packages on a regular basis. We growth below the line on a regular basis. We're constantly looking to move here because of how group installation is, how they're here, so the work that the DPW team that is doing that is going to be inconvenient here over the next couple of FYs is really about making sure that we can continue to handle the traffic and everything else that comes with that growth. So I give them a hard time, but they're doing really important work. And I know it's never fun to live in and around a construction site or work in and around a construction site. But these are long-term deliberate measures to make sure that we can continue supporting our mission partners into the future. So, is that it? Okay, 2 last things. If you hate traffic and you're looking for ways to get around the traffic, let me make sure I get this thing right. Two options that we're bringing back. So the first one is I never say it right. Is the Crofton connector is scheduled to restart on August 6th. So if you commuted to work previously using the Crofton connector that comes off of the Mark train station area in Odenton, that is coming back on, when did I say? August 6th. Scheduled to come back on August 6th. The other thing, DES has been working diligently. We've got all the mechanicals fixed out at Pepper Gate. So if you ever used to use the pedestrian gate or the bicycle gate, we anticipate reopening that in the near term. Right now, we're ordering more of the badges that you use to badge into that gate. And as soon as we get those in, we'll start issuing them. But we will be turning off all previously issued badges because we're just not sure where they're all at right now. So we're going to do that first, but we're going to be prepared to issue new ones as soon as we get those in. And so that is also coming soon. So if you want to beat the traffic, Crofton Connector, Pepper Gate are options for you. Anything else? So Drew says the fog walm starts at 11:30. Any final thoughts or comments? Okay. Hey, 15 minutes over. I apologize. Honestly, I took more time doing the awards than I think the team had scheduled for, just because it's a great opportunity to thank people for all their hard work, and I always want to make the most out of that. Thank you for sticking with us. I truly do appreciate everything that you do for us on a daily basis. If you've and if I didn't answer your question, you don't have to hold your questions until these events. I'm always available to answer your questions, and you know how to get a hold of me. And if you don't, just work with your leadership and you can get those questions to me. So thank you, everything. Thank you, everybody, and have a great remainder of your day.